What's going on, people? Welcome back to Curtis Shaw TV, back with another video. And today, with all this transfer news surrounding Benjamin Sesko potentially coming to Arsenal, I thought we need a little bit more information. Everybody's YouTube experts. I've seen his goals, I've seen his missed chances, but let's get somebody who really knows what he's about, who follows them. We got Justin from RBL Talk, Red Bull Leipzig podcast. I appreciate you coming on. I know you're based in Australia and it's late night there for you, but appreciate you coming on, mate. Thank you very much.
More than welcome. Thank you for having me, Curtis.
How is it over there at the moment? The weather, is it your winter there at the moment?
Hence the hat. Yeah, it's actually pretty cold. I've got the heater cranked and got the beanie on, and if I had some long sleeve shirts, I'd be wearing some of those. But yeah, it's actually pretty freezing here. It's not as bad as what the weather gets in England. So you could
Yeah,
probably say them a little bit weak when it comes to the temperature wise. It's about 14 degrees today, but
it's not too
and this
bad.
evening it's about 2 degrees. But yeah, it's pretty cold over here. We're currently in the middle of our winter, or starting our winter.
I just wanted to ask you, just first of all, we're going to sort of break down parts of Sesko's game and things like that. But from the transfer perspective, what is the Leipzig angle of Cesco leaving? Does it seem from your point of view like a transfer is going to happen, or because we've only really heard from Fabrizio over here, no one else has really said it's happening, but Fabrizio keeps saying it's advancing. But what's the Leipzig angle of the transfer?
Yeah, look, Benjamin Sesko actually had a breakout season this season, scoring around about 13 goals and about 7 assists or something like that. I don't have the stats on me straight away at this current time, but he had a breakout season compared to last season. And I think it's going to be a quite possibility that he's going to leave. And it's not because of, the club wants him out or anything like that. But a lot of people that don't know, RB Leipzig actually missed out on Champions League football and all European football altogether. So we finished seventh in the Bundesliga, which means that we won't even play Conference League. So
Yeah,
with also needing a bit of a rebuild, the two touted players to leave is actually Xavi Simons and Benjamin Sesko. So
wow.
Price, Benjamin Sesko's pretty much got one foot out the door, unfortunately, but I'd love to see him and keep him back at Cotterweg next season.
Didn't you just sign Xavi Simons permanently? Because I know you've had him on loan. So I'm surprised he's one that you're looking to let go of.
Yeah, so that's more of a Xavi's personal decision as well. We just signed him for about 50 million euro
Yeah.
and with some add-ons and things like that from PSG. But he doesn't want to be at the club if not playing any European football. So it'd be very, very unlikely to see him still playing in Leipzig next season. I'd like to see him stay as a fantastic footballer, but I do think both Xavi and Benjamin Sesko will be out the door this January transfer window. Or I should say this
Summer.
summer transfer window. Yeah.
Yeah, Xavi Simons, a player I've actually liked a while. He caused Arsenal a lot of problems when he was at PSV. We played them in the Europa League, but I'm sure a lot of clubs will be in for him as well. Just in terms of Sesko, then, so obviously I brought you on here if you can give us a more detailed breakdown of him. We've all kind of watched him. We're doing the typical YouTube scouting that you all do and watch the goals and the missed chances. And I just want to sort of the thing that's concerning a lot of Arsenal fans about the deal who maybe haven't watched enough of him, including myself, is sort of the numbers. You know, I know you shouldn't always watch football from a stats point of view, but with strikers, you do want to see numbers on the board. I've just got his stats here. 14 goals in 23-24. This is just in terms of the league, the Bundesliga, and then 13 goals last season. What is the reason you think that his numbers aren't higher? Because we've seen a Pender score 20 plus goals at Leipzig. We've seen Nkunku get big numbers. Xavi Simons, Timo Werner over the years. Why do you think Sesko's numbers are not breaking 20 a season? And what are some of the things, the strengths and weaknesses of his game?
Yeah, a lot of that was to do with how we played our football last season as well. So under Marco Rosa, he was trying a few things with the formations and tactics and how we play, and that ended up being his demise when he got let go for interim manager Zlut Löw to come in and play out the last remaining games, about six or so, in the Bundesliga. And it's pretty much all to do with how he was utilized. He was always utilized as a strike partner, and he wasn't really utilized as the main out and out striker, which I think he'd actually thrive on. Because Lewis Openda himself even had a dropped off at least minus 15 goals from his output from last season as well. So it's just not
Yes.
Benjamin Sesko. Benjamin Sesko actually did a lot better this season when it comes to his output. Funny enough, even the stats may not show that exactly, but being out there on the pitch, he produced a lot more and he looked more of a attacking goal threat every single time he got the ball, pretty much compared to Lewis Openda. So some of his positives, which I just put down quick notes, was his penalty taking because he's a really ice cold finisher under pressure. He's got great positioning in coming up to the build up play. He can shoot long shots quite well, considering he's got a thunderous strike. Similar to this is probably showing my age a little bit here, but someone from like Roberto Carlos. I remember watching up. He's a like really big, you know, kick the ball and just absolutely get goals from long distance. He's got great speed and strength and dribbling ability as well, and he's really good in the air. So his
Yes.
nickname is actually Air Cesco. So
Okay.
he's got a massive leap on him. Some people could actually look at some of the times he's actually jumped and think that's photoshopped, but it's not. So he's actually got some really good strength when it comes to his aerial abilities. And we can't cross the ball. If our lives depended on it, we've been pretty poor when it comes to crossing. So we haven't actually been able to give him that type of service to actually utilize his actual core and natural ability strengths. So
Yeah.
I've also got some weaknesses here as well, if you'd like me to mention them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes his passing can also be a little bit wayward. Although he can also assist his strike partner, which he did do a couple of times throughout the season. His ball retention is a little bit poor, but that's a lot of strikers and forwards do struggle when it comes to ball retention. They do seem to lose the ball quite easily.
Yeah.
And his overall defending, he needs to be a little bit more involved when it comes to tracking back a little bit, I felt. So he doesn't just stay all the way up the pitch and right on the shoulder of the defensive line, but he does come back. But I think he just needs to come back and help out a little bit more and winning the ball back by his defensive capabilities. So that's pretty much where I can see him improving. He's still a great footballer, and he's a striker that has a lot of improvement, and he hasn't even reached the ceiling yet.
Some interesting points there, man. I appreciate that. I'm looking at it. Obviously, in a pen with a pender, does he play in a two then? So we're kind of thinking if he plays by himself, because obviously we play 4-3-3, two wingers and a striker. Do you think that helps him because he's the main focal point, or do you think he struggles because he might be up against two centre backs? Do you think that will help him or maybe hold him back a little bit?
I think to start with, it might hold him back a little bit just so he gets used to it because it's not something that we've tried it a little bit throughout the season, but not very often. He's normally had someone that's been a strike partner or a number 10 or someone like that behind him quite close. So I
Yeah.
do think that it's something that if you were to play to his strengths and be able to get crosses into him as well, I think he'd be a really good striker. And I still think that he'd be able to easily score at least minimum 15 goals in a top league like the Premier League, although I don't know if you'd get it in the very first season. So it all comes to essentially how the next team would be playing to him and if it's going to be to his strengths or his weaknesses. So I'd also like to see him be a bit more of a holding player as well. He hasn't really added that to his repertoire as well. So if he could play sort of like as a main centre forward or striker and hold up the ball as well and pass it left or right of him, if he
Yeah.
added that to his game as well, he'd be quite good.
I'll be honest, just from what you've said, we do put a lot of crosses into the area. Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli, and we just haven't had that striker, with Havertz, who's not a natural striker, Marino, Jesus drops deep. We haven't really had a goal scorer since Aubameyang was up there. So I can see the potential. Obviously, there's a lot of debate at the moment amongst Arsenal fans with Victor Gyökeres and Cesco. A lot of the fans want Gyökeres because his numbers are astonishing at the moment, but a lot of the feedback we're getting is that they feel Cesco's ceiling is higher. That at 22, they think maybe in the next couple of years he can be a top striker. Where Gyökeres is 27, they think he might have already maxed out. Do you see how high do you see his potential? Because I remember when Timo Werner was at Leipzig, I was thinking this guy is so quick. He's scoring so many goals. he gets the move to Chelsea, and it just got worse and worse, you know. And then obviously at Tottenham, he's been terrible there. So do you think? How high do you think his potential is, and do you think he can go on to that next level that some people think he can?
Absolutely. I think that he could still be one of the best strikers in world football. I would say by age of 24, because he's still quite young. He
Mm,
just needs to have a manager that's going to be able to help him evolve and work to his natural abilities. Because as biased as it's going to sound coming from an RB Leipzig supporter, as much as I, love my club and everything like that, but we don't really seem to nurture when it comes to the strengths of uh, certain players. We either just grab them and put them in our system, and they try to adapt to us, so to speak. And
yeah,
we try to nurture them and get them good, and then we sell them on for profit, which is pretty much what we've always done. So you can look at the track record of, Nkunku, Sabozloy, Gardeval, like all
yeah,
these players that have gone into the Premier League. We've gotten them, relatively cheap, and then we've built them up and we've made them into not essentially the players that they are today, but we've given them a good stepping stone to further their career. And Benjamin Sesko could quite comfortably be one of the best centre forwards and strikers in world football, when he gets into his prime.
quite a unique frame, any 6'5". Usually, you would think of somebody that height being like a target man, just a big, tall striker like a Giroud, but he seems quite mobile. I saw a stat that I think he matched Kylian Mbappe's top speed. Although Mbappe's acceleration looks a lot quicker, is he quite quick? Is he somebody that, if he's got space to run into, can cause problems like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So he doesn't actually dribble the ball when it comes to like away from his feet. Likes to have the ball very close to himself. He does
Yeah,
take a little bit of time to get to his top speed, but it's normally just a few strides because he does have a bit of a quick acceleration. I was actually quite surprised when he came to Leipzig and we saw just how good his pace was. Especially if he's one on one, he's quite comfortably being able to beat a man and with their pace and run on towards goal. He actually scored a really good goal in the last Bundesliga season when the goalkeeper came off their line, and I think it was like almost from like the halfway mark of the pitch, basically, or just into the final third, and he somehow managed to score the goal from range and outside of the foot as well to be able to beat the goalkeepers. And he basically got that chance himself just from
yeah.
his natural positioning and his pace. And the goalkeeper basically looked at him and thought, "Oh, I've got plenty of time." And then next minute, he was absolutely on him and had to backtrack.
Yeah, no, I saw that goal. I think it was Bayern Munich outside of the foot where he kind of bent
Yeah,
it
that's the
around the
one.
goalkeeper. Yeah, yeah, it was a good goal. One thing I noticed just briefly when I watched some of his highlights was obviously he scored some great goals, but sometimes I felt like he needed to get the shot off quicker. I saw a lot of chances where like his shots were blocked. Um, we play against a lot of low blocks. I mean, teams will sit on the edge of the penalty area against us. How do you think he will fare against teams that low block? Because I feel like when I watch the Bundesliga, the defenses look quite high. There seems to be a lot of space to run into. Do you think he will do okay against the low block, or do you think he'll need time to adapt to that?
Might need a little bit of time to adapt to it, considering the Premier League is a lot more. It's a lot more fast paced as well, and it's a lot more, I would say, physical compared to the Bundesliga. You can get around by almost playing just on the shoulder of your man and then working into the space behind and having lobbed through balls and things like that. So he's definitely got the ability to be able to get past a low block, but it all just been new to him considering a lot of teams don't do a low block to us. There are a couple that have done that throughout the season. I can think of like TSG Hoffenheim and a few other teams that we played, which were around mid to low table, where they essentially just giving us possession and do what we want with it, so to speak. And they've normally played a low block in that regard because they've sat back on us. But um, I do think that he'll be able to adapt to that, and I don't see that being too much of a problem for him.
Just in terms of the transfer itself, then, I mean, I think it's being rumored at about £65 million. Do you think he's worth that kind of money from an Arsenal point of view? And just from Leipzig's point of view, as I said earlier, do you get the impression he's going to Arsenal, or does it just feel like he's going to leave? How advanced does it look like the deal is from the Leipzig point of view?
I think he's going to probably end up leaving to Arsenal, but I wouldn't count someone else trying to, come in and sweep underneath and possibly take him, knowing that RB Leipzig are looking to get some cash flow to fund their next rebuild, and considering that's what we're going to be needing to do with the at least the departures of Xavi Simons and Benjamin Sesko, which is the most likelihood options that will be leaving. So I do think that the stages are probably more advanced than what people have been led to believe in the media, as there's always been talks that from, I think, even just the middle of the season before we got him on the contract extension, that Arsenal were quite interested in him. So I think it's probably more that Arsenal have now gone, well, look at the position of RB Leipzig. You guys would actually have more of a leverage to be able to try to get him even cheaper. So 65 million euro would be quite reasonable for me, because I do think that we did have a release clause. I can't think of it at the moment, but I think it was in the 80s or 90s or something like that. But I don't know if that was for Xavi Simons or if that was for Benjamin Sesko or Lewis Openda. I know Openda's got one, I think, for at least 70 million euros. So yeah, for 65 million euro at 22 years of age, that would be about right for a player of his caliber. I could possibly say more, but that might just be me possibly trying to be a bit greedy to get more funds so that we can do our rebuild with a bit more. But 65 is definitely reasonable.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think. Listen, if you'd have got in the Champions League, maybe that price would have been higher. But just finally, just before we round up, just his general temperament. Do you think because he's walking into a pressure cooker here, Arsenal fans have been waiting for a striker for years, and we know Arteta wants this guy, but we're expecting results quickly from him. Like, do you think he's got the temperament and the personality to deal with that pressure of, being the main man at one of the biggest clubs in the Premier League?
Absolutely. I actually think that's what Benjamin Sesko wanted when he came to RB Leipzig. And he's probably been a little bit disappointed considering he's had to play second fiddle to Lewis Openda. And there's been times where he has been the main player, for instance, last season. Lewis Openda was pretty poor when it came to his output, like mentioned before. And Benjamin Sesko ended up being our main target man, and that we always went to look to get goals. So I think that once he gets it and adapts to the Premier League, if he does go to Arsenal, then he's definitely going to welcome the challenge and also fit in quite comfortably when it comes to his role and temperament of being able to have a new challenge and being the main focus when it comes to output of goals.
Well, that's good to hear. Hopefully he's ready for that challenge. But Justin, I want to say thank you for coming on. I'll put the link in the title for your channel, RBL Talk. People, if you want to go and follow him on there, he puts out regular content. And appreciate you giving up your time. And maybe we'll catch up soon if we do any other business. I was going to say if we play you in Europe, but you're taking a break from Europe this year. Hopefully you get back in next season.
Yeah, that won't be unfortunately happening next season. So thank you very much, Curtis, for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, no problem. Big up to everyone. Get in the comments. Let us know about what we've spoken about. And I'll see you all next time, people. Bless.